This is what we are. We are.
So good morning, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here. It's incredible to see the crowd. It's dark out there, but I see there are people. I just want to say two things. You know, I get slightly nervous when I have these Madonna mics with me. So, blonde ambition, you know, like if you, the bar has been raised really high. The second thing is that I deliberately try to fake my British accent for the sake of my kids, you know, because they on my toes all the time. So you might get something that, you know, becomes American suddenly, you know, one way or the other. But, you know, mostly, you know, I'll do it. I'll do the fake British accent. So I was born in Brazil. So it's such a pleasure to be here. And one of the challenges that I really have today is to replace, so to speak, the irreplaceable Zygmunt Bauman. And his posthumous texts that were published in Spanish just yesterday in Madrid have talked a lot about utopias and painted this a cautious picture of the future where the death of utopias are somehow related or at the center of the crisis that we live through today, if we recognize those as a crisis. In his view, the new world we live in, what he called the liquid world, and I think this is important to remember, does not offer that comforting predictability, solid visualization of the past. So from this progressiveness that we lived for a long time, we turn to our past to regain hope. He seems even to feel sorry about that in his last text. It's quite discomforting to see someone that has worked so hard for so long to feel kind of bad to be leaving the planet at that moment. One of the great differences between humans and all the other animals is the capacity we have to reinvent ourselves, or to say to dream. That is based in great part, I would say, upon our collective acceptance of abstract thoughts and subjective experiences as an integral part of how we live. Certainly other animals have those abilities too, to some degree, but I think nothing like human beings, to the extent that this ability has enabled us to reinvent ourselves over and over, so many times, in so many different periods and going through so many challenges. One of the speculations both scientists and philosophers make is to define consciousness, and with that to try to understand who we are, how we feel, why we act in one way or another, and also why we dream. Are we programmed? Can we be reprogrammed? Are we programmed most of the times, just sometimes? Is intelligence the byproduct of consciousness? Do we have free will? It's an endless discussion. I believe we have four modes of expression. We feel, we think, we say, and we do. We're constantly revising the realities offered by these four different modes. And they retrofit and ignite an infinite cycle of change. Abstraction enables us to respond to the world, including variables and results. They are off limits to the urgency and the immediacy of our daily lives. They are like commentaries, ideas, and not often than not, just that what-if question that we need so badly. However, most of the dreams we've had since the early 19th century to the mid-20th century, let's say, have now been accomplished. The Jetsons, Dick Tracy, you know, with the watch, that you have a television on it. Space travel, AI, video games, virtual reality, mobile phones, Viagra, Thrinder, you know, so many things I can't even cope with, like so many people in the same room, have all been accomplished in a way they are there one way or another. They are part of how we live. You know, they are how we breathe, how we work, how we cure diseases now, how we eat, how we form relationships, how we travel, and how, how we even, let adrenaline kick in. I think the 60s represent maybe the last generation of utopians. Our evolution is a testimony to our capacity to defy reality and therefore to reject fate. It is not intuition that brought us here. It is thoughtful and rational compassion. Paul Bloom would say. He's done just a book about that, and I recommend everyone to read. Intuition is great, but has so many flaws. Being one of them, the mechanism to make us run in circles. And we do not like that. We do not like that forever, and we do not accept that as a destination. I would say even we cannot accept that as a destination. We do not want to run in circles, not for a long time. We do not like the reality brought by intuition for a long time. We need utopia to evolve. We love to reimagine a world from scratch. Utopia exists for me because we're constantly dissatisfied. Dissatisfaction is maybe the greatest ally to creativity. Utopia is not about anything, something difficult or impossible. It is about desiring something so badly that only a completely different world, completely counterintuitive world, would be able to take it. And yet, we've done it so many times. We keep doing it. Think of democracy. Think of Illuminist values. Think of revolution of science. Think of only electricity. What would be our world without electricity? I love our obsession with non-reality more than anything else, I think. I think this is really one of our best characteristics. It is the fuel of our evolution. We do not want to conform. Think for a moment only about humanism, maybe our greatest creation. The idea that because we were born equal, we all deserve the same opportunities because we share the same values. Completely utopic, pretty much impossible. And yet, a fundamental part of our evolution and a fundamental part of our literature, political debate, tolerance, policies, and so many other things that separates us from our past. My claim is that one of the greatest features of the human mind is that we despise reality. Not in a sense of being constantly and wittingly dysfunctional, but in a sense that the world we live is not enough for us, and delusion is part of our nature. If Descartes once said, "I think, therefore I exist," I prefer to use the words of Swedish poet and novelist August Strindberg, "I dream, therefore I exist." I believe we evolve in three different ways: biologically, socially, and technologically. But we have a feedback loop between these three things that change the velocity with which these things interact and accelerate change. What ignites this wonderful web of interaction is randomness and creativity. Not believing in our capacity of abstraction would be the greatest human disaster. So I have a friend, Luli Radfar, and he says, we were not supposed to be named Homo sapiens, but instead Homo dissatisfactans. It's a very good point. We're not satisfied with calories, so we invent gastronomy. We're not satisfied with our eyes, so we do glasses and then contact lenses and then laser surgery. We're not satisfied with cars, so we make airplanes and then spaceships. We always want more. That is our obsession. It is so unique to the human condition, for the good and for the bad, but out there to say mostly for the good. When we have the intellectual and the financial and the material capacity to change the reality we live, and we do not do it, I think that our social issues become a moral debt. So it's our duty to act. Today, within the most utopic things I would wish for myself, I would list having time, being anonymous, and accepting not knowing maybe. And like John Lennon said once, imagine no religion. That would be for me one thing. One of the challenges utopians have is how to represent utopia and how to make it attainable so that other people can visualize it, can make it material for them. That is what literature, popular science, science fiction, film, and others have done before. They try to keep doing it. I think we're lacking in the moment an effective vehicle to do it. Maybe augmented reality and virtual reality are trying to tap into that and fill that void as persuasive technologies. But we'll see what happens. So many people in history have said we had already accomplished everything. Is it wrong to say now? Have we really accomplished everything? I don't think so, but maybe, is the only utopia really only happiness? Because we accomplished so many things. As we face the 21st century and the world becomes more complex, we will require the help of philosophers to speculate on some hard questions. From AI to our incapacity to act collectively to solve problems we have long discovered the solutions for, like hunger, for example. What we need again are these big what-ifs. As often philosophers, some Harry said, we have entered an era when our very humanness in genetic terms is no longer a necessary condition to our existence. So there's a lot to do. There's a lot to be invented. And they all start often with an utopian thought, something that is absolutely impossible. So we need a vision or delusion. So in the land of Dali, Barcelona, Catalonia, we need more surrealism. And I ask you to imagine utopia as a collective project in these days and ahead. Let's dream and let's be utopians before we get to work. I wish you an incredible time here, and I wish you really take the time also to digest all the things you're going to go through. And just before I finish, and I ask you really to reimagine and reinvent our world all over again, because I think we badly need it. I'll just expose myself, so to speak, and then I'll tell you a poem that I wrote about 5 years ago that is called Revolution, that I think has so much to do with this moment. And it goes like that. The world doesn't care. It's up to you to dare and to throw out of the window what angers your soul, the past of bitter and cold. So depart from thinking, accept your heart is sinking, and dare to swear, to break apart, and forever restart the neglected hope when patience is not in the scope. So spit in the face of common, act gladly as a moron. Make no sense of reality and reject the old formality. It starts from intuition, it is creative destruction, and build whatever brings what we have long forgotten, to separate what is rotten. So leave the comfort zone to leave the peace once known. Thank you very much and have a good time. And just one last thing before I leave the stage, I would like to hear from you a big round of applause to Andres and Lucy. They've been putting this thing together, and it's the most amazing conference I've been ever. Thank you very much, guys.
In randomness, we trust.